Welcome to Goals preview of Liverpool versus Man City, a clash of the top two and potentially game of the season so far. I'm joined by Chief Correspondent Peter Staunton and our Manchester City correspondent Sam Lee. Guys, thank you very much for joining me. So both sides are straight out of Champions League action and they have slightly contrasting form. What's the mentality of the teams going into this one?
Liverpool really need to get back on track. They haven't won any of their last three games. Two against Chelsea, obviously that disappointing result against Napoli. Liverpool, I think, had somewhat of a hex over Manchester City last season, and although City are a high-class team and probably favourites for the Premier League, I think Liverpool feel there are worse teams they could be playing to try and snap this run of form out.
Yeah, well, from City point of view, it's kind of hard to quantify a bit, really. It was a really entertaining game in the midweek against Hoffenheim. They did what they needed to do. They reacted well to go in the early goal down, but there's a few little problems there that could be a problem later on in the competition, and not so much in the Premier League, but given it's Liverpool on Sunday, problems that we could see again. The momentum is there. They are doing well. They've got a lot of options, as they always do, but it's kind of hard to tell, and I'm looking forward to the game in that respect, to see where both teams are.
The interesting thing I found with City last year is that they went in to most of their matches with such a sense of dominance, and almost with the sense that they're going to win whatever happens. But I felt that Guardiola was a little bit scared of Klopp at times last year, that he almost paid his team a little bit too much respect because he knew what Salah, Mane and Firmino were capable of on the break. So he set his City team up, especially in that Champions League in the first leg when they went 2 or 3-0 down really early on. Yeah. He set them up really differently than he'd been setting his team up in other games. Yeah. And I just wonder whether maybe that sort of defensiveness maybe that Guardiola has, or maybe that wariness that he has over Liverpool might actually open the initiative up for Liverpool in this game on Sunday.
Yeah, he kind of overthought it a bit.
Yeah.
He went for Gundogan instead of Sterling, which you can understand because Sterling doesn't always do well when he goes back to Anfield. Well, I mean, that's a bit of an understatement. He has a tough time, really. And Guardiola obviously knew that. He put Gundogan in because it's just more passes, basically. The Guardiola idea of defending is just have more of the ball,
keep the ball,
more passes, just keep it simple, really. And for the first 10 minutes or so, it worked. And as soon as Salah scored it all fell down again. And that's what they need to avoid, because the last two times they've been at Anfield, they've conceded 3 goals in like 15, 20 minutes, if that. They need to avoid that. Guardiola was kind of overthinking it a bit. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens on Sunday, because if they've got Mendy available, they can try something completely new. But without him, they've just tended to stick to the 4-3-3 from last season, which obviously gets results, and it's been winning football. But they maybe don't have the variety or the options in midfield because of injuries that they would need to try something different. And if Mendy doesn't play, then you've got who's going to play at left back anyway, because there's a few different question marks about everyone else, basically.
So back to Liverpool's form. They've had 2 defeats in the last 3. They're close to losing to Chelsea, apart from that wonder goal from Sturridge. What do they need to do on Sunday?
Liverpool, they've got a great belief in their methods. There's no plan B for Liverpool. It's plan A plus when they need to try something different. But I just have a little bit of I have a little bit of wariness about Liverpool this season. I think that because that plan A isn't working as profoundly well as it did last season, when they were in contention for so many competitions right up until the last knock-ins of the Champions League, of course, as well. But this year it's just not coming off for them. Some of the new signings who started the season looked like in particularly good form. I think Alisson is going to be a settled signing for them, but elsewhere there's still question marks over, like Shaqiri, Fabinho. Naby Keita is injured now, and what they need more than anything else is for that front three to click. Because if that front three isn't delivering goals and isn't delivering consistent chances across the 90 minutes, then they're going to attract pressure on their defence. Which although Gomez and Van Dijk have been great so far this season, you just always think there's a wobble in the Liverpool defence, especially against a team as high class as Man City.
I think this is kind of a perfect opportunity for Liverpool to snap themselves out of this funk that they're in at the moment, because they will raise the game against City. The fans obviously helped that. They helped a lot in the Champions League earlier this year, and just the way that it's become a big game, for Liverpool and the fans now. City at home or away, but particularly at home, it's like one of the biggest games of their season, because it's like they're measuring themselves against City. They were miles back last season in terms of the Premier League, 25 points behind. But kind of carrying on as if they're a better team than City, because they knocked them out of the Champions League and beat them at Anfield. And there's a bit of a rivalry snowball in there a little bit. Obviously, everything else has happened with the bus stuff in April, going back to Sterling and then Milner, all that kind of stuff. And they're going to be really up for this on Sunday. The players will be as well, and I hang around with a lot of City fans, follow a lot on Twitter. They would snap your hand off for a draw at this point, and everyone is convinced that Salah, he's not had a great season so far. So many City fans I know are convinced he's going to get a hat-trick this weekend, because it's that kind of thing, and despite how good City are now, there's still that typical City feeling that they've got ingrained in them that the worst thing can happen. And for City fans at the moment, the worst thing that can happen is losing to Liverpool.
Well, City's run of games has been easier, it's fair to say. How's that going to help them this weekend?
Well, again, I'm not sure it will, because we know 9 times out of 10 they're going to win. It doesn't really matter who they play against. And in terms of not having Mendy available, last year they played without him, won the league anyway, record-breaking style. This season, since Mendy's been injured, they've won 6 of their 7. And they've got a better team and a better setup than Liverpool, but, the Klopp style and Guardiola style, kind of incompatible. That's why Klopp's beaten Guardiola so often. And that's why the last few results, as impressive as City have looked at times, might kind of be irrelevant when it comes to Liverpool this weekend, just because of all the ingredients that are thrown into it.
I think so too. The Premier League, by and large, is so easy for Pep Guardiola and Man City that they can afford to use the matches against the Cardiffs and the Huddersfield and the Fulhams as almost a sandbox, to test out ideas, to test out different formations, to see how they will get on when it comes time to play those bigger games in the Champions League and the Premier League. So the only time we ever get an idea of what Guardiola's preferred 11 is, or what he thinks his strongest team is going to be, is once they come up against the Liverpools in the Premier League, or let's see it further on in the Champions League when they get into the knockout rounds and things get a little bit more difficult.
Actually, there's no preferred 11. There is no strongest City 11. And people say, if City were playing the Champions League final, what would be the 11? That's their strongest 11. That's not the point. The point is, who are they playing in the Champions League final? If they're playing Real Madrid, it'll be one team. If they're playing Barcelona, it'll be another. If they're playing Liverpool, it'll be something completely different. And that's just how they work. At
this stage in the season, would you say it's really a title decider?
No. And it wasn't last year anyway, even in January, was it? It wasn't a title decider. No, Liverpool were miles behind.
City were so far clear. But it's not a title decider, but it's a benchmark game. This run of fixtures for Liverpool this early in the season, it's not a very welcome thing. You have to play the big games at some stage, but to have so many of them together in such a short space of time, when the potential for not getting results and continue the early season momentum, once that comes on top of a team, it can be difficult maybe to snap yourself out of that funk of confidence. And their winning record is gone. City have gone top of the league, and maybe the mentality at Liverpool might be, okay, here we go. City have moved into gear now, and it's their time to take over at the top. Not a title decider by any means, but a game where I think we get a really good idea of where these teams will lie come the end of the season, depending on the outcome of this one.
Yeah, and from City's point of view, obviously it's different, and they would have to maybe correct a few things if they did lose. But from January last year, we all thought, this is the first time they've lost. How are they going to react? And they just carried on as normal. And the proof is kind of there to suggest that they could do this again. Whereas, like you say, with Liverpool, because their title challenge has been mounted a bit on the fear factor that they carried over from last season, but that's kind of disappeared a little bit with the front three not quite clicking. And if they were to lose, then it'll be like, we had 25 points to make up last year, we've got 5 or however many it will be now, and that gap there might start to make them think, maybe we're not ready. Whereas with City, they think, well, this happened last year, we'll just carry on.
In which case, how can Liverpool hurt Man City?
They have to hurt them. I think they're going to hurt them on the break. That's going to be Liverpool's best chance. I don't think they should be going toe-to-toe with City. I think let them have the ball, let them come well into the Liverpool half, and then when moves break down, one quick pass to the wings. Mane, who's been maybe off the boil a little bit in the last couple of games, but who's been fantastic at the start of the season for Liverpool. Salah, the other side, who really needs to up his game, but those two still have the ability to carry the ball forward, go one-on-one with Alisson, and maybe, Ederson should have said, maybe make some chances from there. I think that's Liverpool's best opportunity, hit them on the break.
Yeah, it's just that fast frenzy that we've seen in the last 2 games at Anfield. They've scored 3 goals in not very long a period of time, and that's because they just go at them. They force mistakes from City. City look so assured in so many of their games, the vast majority of their games. But whatever Liverpool do, whenever they've played them like that with that fast approach, City defenders, even Ederson, they make mistakes, and that's what they're going to need to do again.
On the flip side, what does City have that Liverpool don't?
They've got options, haven't they? I think they've got look, Klopp's a great manager, but Guardiola is the best around. He's got so many options, and yeah, sometimes he overcomplicates things, and that's what we saw earlier in the season with last season with the Champions League. That could happen again, but they've got a stronger squad. They've got more options. Fine at the moment. Like, even if Gundogan's injured, he's not one of their biggest players, but he's an option in midfield. Kevin De Bruyne could be back in the squad at the weekend, but probably not fit enough to start. Almost certainly not fit enough to start. And Mendy, they've got problems at left back, but they've just got so many. They've got a stronger squad. They've got players who know exactly what they're doing, and so do Liverpool's, by the way. But Liverpool have got that one approach, haven't they, where it's all or nothing, 100%.
And you would have to
City
say
can mix it up a little bit.
And, you know, they haven't really missed De Bruyne, as good as he is. There's the very fact that Bernardo Silva can come in as a starter and almost just take up that position in the team and still deliver assists and goals the same way that De Bruyne would. Yeah. You know, they can really cover for those absences a little bit better, whereas if Liverpool had one or two key players missing, I don't think they would be able to make up for it quite as Guardiola can. Yeah,
these are the games where you'd probably go, well, You'd wish they had De Bruyne. City would certainly wish they had De Bruyne this weekend. But having said all this about City and all their strengths, and I do believe they are a better team than Liverpool. Well, the league title of last season proves that. But it's just kind of irrelevant when they play each other because of the clash of styles and everything that goes into it. Aguero, I don't think he's scored against Liverpool at Anfield in 7 games, I think, going back to his time at Atletico Madrid. He doesn't seem to do a lot there ever. Sterling, as we've mentioned, and then as we mentioned with the Ederson making mistakes in the league and the Champions League, the centre-backs as well. You know, Guardiola's got 4 good centre-backs, and he can play any of them in any given game, and it'll be enough. But play any of them at Anfield, and you can see mistakes happening. So that's the beauty of this fixture, really. Anything can happen, and the form of the teams is kind of irrelevant. It's going to be some game.
And lastly, your predictions for the match.
As I mentioned earlier, City fans would snap your hand off for a draw. I think I think City would be happy with that as well. They one win there since 1981. Mm-hmm. It's just such an incomprehensible amount of time to even consider. You think, how have they just not done it? And there's been so many different ways why they haven't won. And even now with this great team, they still haven't been able to do it. So even though Liverpool haven't been great, they haven't really hit the heights this season, have they? And particularly not recently. But I think they're going to raise it, and I think Liverpool can win this. Well, they can win it. I think they will win it.
I don't think City have anything to be afraid of. And I think Guardiola losing his head in the second leg last year really cost them, because I think Liverpool were there for the taking in the Champions League. But I just think there's something about City as a club that are afraid of Liverpool, and I think they really need to bust through that psychological hurdle. And this should be the weekend that they're going to do it. I think City are going to win it well.
Thanks to Pete and Sam. You can follow these guys on Twitter and Instagram. Just follow the links in the description. Let us know in the comment section how you think this game will play out. And hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to get all the latest football news and analysis direct from goal.